Good morning, my lovely reader. Today I'm going to read the 2026 Bluestem book, Legends of Lotus Island, The Guardian Test by Christina Soontornvat, illustrated by Kevin Hong. Legends of Lotus Island, The Guardian Test. Here's a little map. Chapter 1. Worms always think they know everything. Come on, friends. Not there by the squash. You want to be over here by these chai melons. Trust me. I scoop the worms out of the dark, fluffy soil and set them down near the chai melon vine. There. Now make that dirt good and soft because I want to eat some big fat melons this summer. I stood up and walked around our garden. The eggplant and crisp cucumbers were doing great this year, and of course our chili plants and snake beans were growing wild, as always. But my main concern was our fruit trees. This year I was determined that we would have everything: jackfruit, mangoes, tea fruit, rose apples, even stinky durian. I heard a rustling in the mango leaves. "Oh, sorry to wake you," I whispered to the family of fox bats that hung upside down sleeping. "Now don't forget what we agreed. You get the mangoes up top and leave the low stuff for us, okay?" The mama fox bat yawned and shut her eyes again. A couple of years ago they nibbled bites out of every mango on our tree, but now that I've convinced Grandpa to take down the nets, they only took fruit that was too high for us to reach. In a couple of weeks it would all start getting ripe. I could practically taste the feast in my mouth. The only fruit we could ever seem to grow was plum. I turned around to see Grandma shuffling down the hill towards me. "Over here in the orchard, Grandma." "Plum," she huffed. Come on up to this house, dear. Is everything okay?" "Of course it is," she said, but I saw the corner of her mouth twitch. She always did that when she wasn't telling me the whole story. I wondered what was going on, but I knew better than to pester her. I let her lean on my shoulder as we walked slowly back up the hill to our house. The cool evening breeze felt so good after a long, sweaty day working in the garden. As always, we paused on the one spot where we could see the entire island. Our little wooden house and barn stood at the top of the hill. The garden and orchard were down below near the freshwater spring. On the other side, Grandpa's rice fields sloped down to the coconut grove, and all around the blue ocean sparkled. The sun was starting to set. The fox bats were waking up, and the swallows were already swooping overhead. I imagined them calling out to us, "Day is done, day is done, time for night." "Good night," I called up to them. "Don't forget our deal about the mangoes." Out on the water, I spotted a little blue postal boat zipping back towards Big Crab Island. My stomach did a flip. We almost never got mail. I glanced at Grandma for some hint as to what was going on, but her face was like a stone. Before we got to the house, Grandma patted my hand. "Oh, and tomorrow, remind me that I need your help with the wheelbarrow. The chai melon bed is full of rocks, and we've got to move them so the worms can get in." I looked back at the garden and shook my head. Those worms were never going to let me hear the end of this. Chapter 2. When we got inside, Grandpa was bouncing around the kitchen. "Plum, come, sit down." Our little velvet goat, Tansy, was hopping about, almost as energetic as he was. He pulled out a chair for me and poured himself a cup of tea, sloshing it onto the table. Tansy clip-clopped all over and put her soft head in my lap. "Grandpa, what's going on? Why are you so excited?" Grandma sighed and went to the stove to stir the soup. Her face looked like she'd sucked on a bitter lemon. Grandpa patted my knee. "Plum, you know how we've talked about you spending more time around other people?" "Yes," I said, still confused. "Is this about that summer camp on Big Crab Island?" Grandma clanged her spoon against the pot. "Just tell her already." Grandpa reached inside his pocket and brought out an envelope. "Read it for yourself, my dear." "Dear Miss Plum, I have the pleasure of inviting you to the Guardian Academy on Lotus Island. For centuries, the Guardians have fulfilled their ancient duty to protect the nurture life in the Santipap Islands. Every 10 years, a new class of novice guardians is selected to train with our masters. Your application identified you as a strong candidate to join the next novice class. Please arrive on the full moon to begin the first phase of your training. Sincerely, Master Sunback. My mind tumbled around in a confused mess. Tansy started nibbling the paper. Stop that. I jerked it out of her mouth. Grandpa, this must be a mistake. I didn't apply to the Guardian Academy. He grinned. I applied for you. I sat straight up. What? And you didn't tell me? I didn't think you'd get in. He cleared his throat. What I mean is, I didn't want you to get your hopes up in case it didn't work out. But I can't be a guardian. Those people are magical. They travel all over the islands doing, I don't know, magical stuff. Grandpa waved his fingers at me. They all started off as regular kids. They transform into spectacular creatures, I said, like high wolves and zorahawks and ghillie bears, offered Grandma. I threw my hands up. And ghillie bears! Can you imagine me as a gigantic white bear diving into the waves? It's ridiculous. That's what the academy is for, to learn. Grandpa leaned over to take my hand. Plum, your grandma and I have been talking about this for some time. You are such a special girl, and that is becoming clearer the older you get. You have such a way with plants and animals. You talk to those fox bats, and now we finally get to enjoy our mangoes. I rolled my eyes. It's not like they actually understood me. Well, you can't spend your whole life here, being a farmer on this little island. You are meant to do great things. I know it. I looked at Grandma, but she had turned her back to me. So they had been talking about me in secret? It would have been nice if they had let me in on this decision. I folded my hands in my lap. Thank you, Grandpa, but I don't want to go, I said quietly. Plum, don't be silly. Think of the opportunity. I'm not going. I stood up. Grandpa, if I'm gone, who will take care of the garden? Who will take care of Tansy? Who will take care of you? I thought. Grandma set the soup pot down on the table with a loud clatter. Dinner's ready. Tears welled up in my eyes. How could they expect me to eat when they had just turned my whole world upside down? I'm not hungry, I yelled. I bolted out the door and into the night. Chapter 3. I ran out onto the grass with Tansy at my heels. The sky was deep purple now, and the stars had come out. I wiped my cheeks and dribbling nose. Tansy put her head in my wet hand. That's one good thing about velvet goats. They don't care if you get snot on their ears. They want me to leave, Tansy. Can you believe that? And me? A guardian? What are they thinking? I had seen a guardian only once in my life when we took the boat to Big Crab Island. She was there to heal their 100-year-old fig tree that had been struck by lightning. In human form, she was so elegant and powerful that I thought she must be royalty. Before our eyes, she had transformed into a slinky gleamer. She had scrambled up into the branches and placed her hands on the blackened trunk. A bright light streamed out of the crack, and the tree was healed. I can't do anything like that, Tansy. Look at me. I'm dirty. I'm barefoot. I'm talking to a goat. I turned around to see Grandma. I sniffled. Talking to Tansy doesn't mean I have powers. Maybe, Grandma sighed, but your grandpa is right, Plum. You are special. You don't know it because you've hardly ever left this island, and you've got two crusty old people for friends. But there is something about you. I've known it for a long time. I don't care if I'm special. I don't want to go. I don't want it either, said Grandma quietly. Plum, I think it's time I give you something. She reached into her apron pocket and brought out a small object. She placed it on my palm. A snail shell? The coils of the honey-colored shell formed a slender, pointed cone. A string of fishy twine ran through a tiny hole on the top. Your mother made me this when you were still in her belly. My heart leaped like a grasshopper to hear Grandma talk about my mother. I'd never known my parents. I was just a baby when a storm capsized their boat on the open sea. She made it after she had a dream about you. She said that she held tight to that dream and put it right inside the shell for you to have when you grew up. Grandma smiled. I know you're not quite grown, but it's time for you to have it. I gently traced the coils with my finger. I had always felt like I knew my dad because Grandma's house was filled of his pictures and old toys. I even slept in his old bed. But we had only one photograph of my mother. I never asked questions about my parents because I didn't want to make Grandma sad. But now it felt like Grandma had opened a door. I had to hurry before she shut it again. What was my mother like, Grandma? When your dad first brought her here from Nakhon Island, I wasn't sure what to think of her. She was so quiet and small, but she took to farm life right away. She loved to work in the gardens beside your dad, and she loved the sea. They swam together every day after work. Sometimes I thought they would turn into seals and swim away. So I always made something good for dinner to lure them back home. We both laughed at that. I've always thought it was cool that she was from Nakhon Island, I said. It's such a big, fancy place. I'm afraid I don't know much about her life there. She didn't talk about her family, which made me think her past was a sad story. I didn't want to pry. I thought I would have so much more time to get to know her. Now I wish I hadn't waited. Grandma took both my hands and held them tight like a clamshell. I love you so much. So did your dad. They'd both be so proud of how you're growing up. Grandma was never this talkative. I hung on every word. Plum, we have done the best we can for you, she said. We raised you how your parents would have wanted. But now I think it's time for you to see more than the world. I think they would have wanted that too. I looked out at the moonlight waves. Our island was perfect in every way, but I also felt something tugging at me, like the tide. As much as I hated to admit it, there was something in me that was curious to go. But Grandma, being a guardian, only a few people ever learn how to do that. What if I can't? She squeezed my hand. Then you'll come back here. This will always be your home, but if you don't try, you'll never know what might have been. Plum, you have Tansy, get off me. Tansy ripped off a chunk of Grandma's apron and swallowed it down. Can you take this dang goat with you when you go? We both laughed again. Here, Grandma took the snail shell out of my hand. It may look fragile, but it's actually very tough and strong, just like your mother, just like you. She tied the twine around my neck and cupped my face in her steady hands. I tried not to cry because I knew Grandma never did. This is the right thing to do, Plum. I can feel it in my bones. I shut my eyes. I wanted to feel it too, but I still wasn't sure. I listened to the night bugs and the frogs singing all around us. I imagined them saying, "Give it a try, give it a try, give it a try." Okay, I said. I'll give it a try. Chapter 4. You have your boat ticket? Asked Grandpa as we walked down the hill to our little wooden dock. Yes, Grandpa. And your jacket? Yes, Grandpa. And your hat? Socks? Oh, what about extra underwear? Grandpa! My grandma cut him off. Stop fussing so much. The girl is bringing enough stuff to open her own market. Now, Plum, don't forget this. She handed me a basket covered with her handkerchief. I made extra honey egg cakes. She squeezed my hand. You can share them with the other kids during the boat ride. Make some new friends. The larger passenger boat swung up beside our dock, and its motor idled, chugging loudly. I had never been on a boat so big before. I grasped the shell pendant around my neck. Grandma, what do you think my mother dreamed for me? I don't know, said Grandma softly, but maybe while you're on Lotus Island you'll discover the answer. I threw my arms around her and hugged her tight. Her hair smelled like sweet dough and ginger. Thank you, Grandma. Then I hugged Grandpa, and he squeezed me so hard it made me laugh. I love you, Grandpa. Go on, hurry now, said Grandma. You don't want to make them wait. And always remember that Tansy! How did you get out of your pen? She shooed Tansy away from her apron. Please take this goat with you. I nuzzled Tansy one last time. Take care of them, girl. I ran down the dock, suitcase in one hand, basket in the other. Before I knew it, I had handed over my ticket and my luggage, and we were shoving off. I stood at the rail and watched my island become smaller and smaller behind us. Goodbye. Goodbye. I love you. Grandpa waved with one arm. The other was wrapped around Grandma, who was weeping into his shoulder. Suddenly, I felt a pull on my heart, like a fishing line stretched to breaking. There was so much more I wanted to say to them, but the boat revved its motor, and the wind blew my hair back, and my island was only a dot on the horizon, then gone. Chapter 5. The sweet smell of the honey egg cakes in my basket made my mouth water, but we had a long way to go, and I wanted to save them to share like Grandma had suggested. My island, little island, was the farthest south in the Santipap archipelago, and our boat would make stops along the way north to Lotus Island. For the moment, I was the only one on board, so I had my pick of seats. I chose one near the rail on the top deck so I could look down and watch the bottle whales racing along in our wake. "You're all so fast," I called down to them, "but can you beat us? Go, go!" I squealed when one of the bottle whales leaped up and flipped its tail, spraying me with water. The boat attendant came by to punch my ticket. "We should be coming up on Big Crab Island soon. We have one person joining us from there. Then it's on to Nakon, where we're picking up most of our passengers." "Thank you, sir." I still felt nervous thinking about meeting other kids. Would they like me? I hugged the basket of egg cakes closer. I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to go back to the map so you can kind of get an idea. We have the Big Crab Islands. Little Island is over here. Small Crab Island, Big Crab Island, Tortoise Nose Island, Selm Island, Bitty Bop Island, Nakon Island, the Sanitpap Sea, Lotus Island is over here, and several other little islands as well. When we glided up to the pier at Big Crab Island, a girl with short pigtails and a big backpack got on board. There were 50 empty seats, but she chose one in the row right in front of me. "The name's Cherry," she said, sticking out her hand. Her eyes were dark and shiny, just like cherries. I smiled, glad that she had come up to me first. "Nice to meet you. I'm Plum. I guess we can make a fruit salad together." Ugh, that was such a cheesy joke. Get it together, Plum. But Cherry grinned and slapped me on the shoulder. "Ha! I like that. Aren't you just so excited to get to the academy? I can't wait. I've known I would be a guardian since I was little, but thinking about the lessons and that big test is still a little nerve-wracking. You know what I mean?" I gulped. I didn't know what she meant at all. Big test? Grandpa hadn't mentioned anything. That. My uncle is a guardian," she said, with a proud smile. "His guardian form is a giant narwhal. I guess that means I could end up being a narwhal too." She leaned in and whispered, "But you want to know a secret?" I nodded. "I would love for my guardian form to be something with big claws, like a jai cat." She swiped imaginary claws through the air at me and laughed. "What about you? What do you think your guardian form will be?" You're kind of quiet, so maybe it'll be some kind of fish, or a giant land snail. I guess it all depends on what types of guardians we turn out to be, so there's no point in getting ahead of ourselves." I was struggling to keep up with the conversation. I guess that Cherry had learned all of this from her uncle. "Excuse me, what do you mean types of guardian?" "There are 3 kinds of guardians: hand, heart, and breath. Hand guardians are fierce, fast, and strong." She turned to the side and threw some quick air punches. "Heart guardians are the healers, and breathe guardians are super chill, and they can calm people down," or something like that. "No one in my family has ever been close to being one of those." Haha. She slapped me on the shoulder again. "But don't worry, no matter what type of guardians we are, we all learn how to fight." How to become a guardian. Trainee, train hard, pass the first test. Novice, study with the guardian masters of Lotus Island for 1 year. Guardian. Fight? I gulped again. Sure, as protectors, guardians have to know about defense. I think it's just a precaution, though. We probably won't ever end up actually fighting anyone. Cherry sighed, like that was a real tragedy. She talked on, and I learned a lot just from listening to her. For our first month at the academy, we would be called trainees. If we all did well and passed our first test, we would be promoted to novices. After 1 year of training, novices graduated and became true guardians. But that first test was vital. If trainees didn't pass, they had to go back home. I suddenly remembered my basket. I held it out to Cherry. "Do you want a honey egg cake? My grandma made them." Cherry reached in and pulled one of the sticky cakes. I thought she would take a nibble, but she popped the entire thing in her mouth. "If fluff, fimmy, mummy, what?" She swallowed and wiped her mouth. "It tastes really yummy." We both giggled. "I would give you more, but I need to save them for the other kids," I said, wrapping the rest of the cakes back up. The boat's motor quieted as it slowed down. A voice called out over the speaker, 15 minutes to Nakon Harbor." Jerry and I both rushed to the front of the boat and looked out. We were gliding into a huge bay full of boats. An enormous city ringed the harbor with buildings higher than 10 of our mango trees stacked on top of one another. I held to shield my eyes from the glare. There was so much glass and so much metal and so many people. I was suddenly very glad we weren't getting off the boat here. "My mom says everyone who lives in Nakon is fancy," said Cherry. Prepare to take on passengers, shouted the attendant. I swallowed. I guess we're about to find out if that's true. Chapter 6. Our boat attendant said that Nakan Harbor was too crowded for us to get close to shore, so the next batch of kids would be coming out to us on smaller boats. Is that them coming this way? I asked Cherry. A pod of brightly colored objects was skimming towards us across the surface of the water. They were too small to be boats. Hoverbots. Cherry clapped her hands. Yes, I wanted to see the hoverbots of Nakan. The hoverbots were as tall as me with smooth, rounded bodies, each one of them a different color. Dark pink, orange, lime green, bright red, and pineapple yellow. The green hoverbot zipped up to the ship, rose above the water, and spoke to our captain. Arrival papers requested, it said in a voice that sounded like someone speaking into glass. While the captain handed over our arrival papers, the other hoverbots zipped around their boat, repeating inspection, inspection, inspection. Suddenly, the pink hoverbot flew right up to where Cherry and I stood at the rail. Green beams of light shone out. Inspection, it says as it scanned the light beams over us. Then it zipped away. I guess we passed the inspection, I whispered to Cherry. Cleared to take on passengers, announced the green hoverbot. And with that, a small white motorboat began whizzing across the harbor towards us. When it got to us, 8 new trainees climbed up the ladder and onto the deck of our boat. They must have been about my age, but they seemed so much older and taller. As our boat's motor revved up for departure, I hung back feeling like someone had glued my lips shut. Cherry, on the other hand, walked right up to the other kids and started talking. I wish I could be more like her. I took a deep breath and picked up my basket. 2 girls sat talking in seats under the boat's canopy. They wore brightly colored dresses with sharp pleats. I smoothed down my wrinkled pants as I walked towards them. One of the girls wore her hair in one long braid down her back. I held my hand out to her. Hello, my name is Plum. It's so nice to meet you. The girl with the braid looked at my fingers. If you expect people to shake your hand, you really should wash it first. I quickly pulled my hand behind my back. My cheeks burned. I thought I had cleaned my fingernails, but maybe they were still dirty from the garden. The girl beside her said, Rella, mind your manners. She smiled at me. My name's Hetty. Hetty's smile gave me courage. I held the basket out towards them and pulled back the cloth. It's nice to meet you. Would you like a honey egg cake? My grandmother made them for me to share with everybody. The girls each took one and said thank you, and noticed that Rella held hers between her fingers like it was a squashed stink bug. I wanted to run and hide. What was I supposed to say? Just then we heard a horn blast behind us, and the funny voice of a hoverbot called out, Cease all motion, prepare for boarding. Our boat stopped and all the kids ran onto the rail to see what was going on. A sleek silver speedboat glided up to us, and a tall boy with glasses climbed aboard. He must have been a trainee too. All the other kids had come aboard alone like me, but this boy was followed by 3 grown-ups. I looked into my basket. I had only 1 honey egg cake left. My mouth watered, but I felt I should give mine to him. As I squared my shoulders and took a deep breath, stepped toward him, Rella grabbed my arm. Please don't tell me you're not thinking of giving a sticky cake to that boy. Hetty giggled. Don't you know who that is? Asked Rella. That's Sam Uban, the son of Lady Uban. Their family owns half of Nakan Island. You really think he's going to want one of your Grammy's cakes? Hetty leaned towards Rella and whispered, Did you see the servants come on board with him? Talk about spoiled. Rella nodded. I bet he doesn't even have to blow his own nose. They laughed and pulled away from me to go back to their seats. Sam Uban sat towards the front of the boat. None of the other kids, not even Cherry, went up to talk to him. I didn't blame her or anyone else. The servants were fluttering around him like flies while he sat very still. He must have been used to that. Our boat was off again. As I went to take my seat, I looked into the trash basket near the rail. The honey egg cakes I had given to the girls lay smashed at the bottom. Neither of them had even taken a bite. Chapter 7. Our boat continued through the Sanipap Islands, stopping here and there to pick up more trainees. None of the kids we picked up were as well dressed as the ones from Nakan, and definitely no one had servants in tow like Sam. But no one else was like me either. They all seemed to have worn their best clothes and new shoes. I was wearing my gardening clogs, which were half size too small, so that my heels stuck out on the back. But Cherry didn't seem to notice any of that. She included me in every conversation. I started to think I could call her my friend, though truly she was friends with everyone. She chattered and threw her head back and laughed and laughed. It was so easy to be around her. I tried to listen in everyone's conversations about the Guardian Academy. It seemed like they all knew someone who had gone there in the past, a cousin, a grandparent, or someone from the village. But even so, no one seemed to know exactly what our training would look like or what the first test would be. Just that you didn't want to fail it. I was listening to Cherry tell an exciting story about her uncle's adventures as a narwhal when suddenly one of the kids pointed and shouted, "Look, is that it?" We all rushed to the front railing, even Sam, whose servants ran after him, holding an umbrella over his head to block the sun. "Wow," said Cherry, "Lotus Island. It's just like I imagined it." I hadn't known what to imagine, but the moment I saw Lotus Island, it felt like I had seen it in my dreams all my life. Birds dived down the faces of sheer gray cliffs that towered above the water. It was so green, with trees growing between the massive rocks. The late afternoon sun glinted off the gold tiles of the rooftops, making the whole island glow. I glanced at Rella, who stood beside me. She was mesmerized, too. It almost seemed like she might start crying. I knew how she felt. I touched my shell necklace, wondering what my mother would think if she could see me now. The boat pulled up to a dock that jutted out from a long sandy beach. We all lined up to gather our bags. 2 people stood on the dock to meet us, a young man wearing golden brown robes and a woman with short hair and a white tunic and pants. We bowed to them as we stepped onto the dock. "Welcome, new trainees. Welcome to Lotus Island," said the young man. "My name is Brother Chalad, and I'm one of the instructors here. This is Master Dew, one of our teachers." The woman in white greeted us with a wink. "Welcome, little sisters and brothers. We're happy you're here. We will have a ceremony tonight and properly welcome you to the island, but first we'll show you to your rooms and let you rest." It had been a very long day for me, but my whole body buzzed with excitement as I followed behind the other kids. Brother Chalad hung back to speak with Sam's servants. "I'm sorry, but only new trainees are allowed onto the island at this time," Brother Chalad said. "I'm afraid you'll have to return to the boat." The servant with the umbrella frowned, but Lady Uban herself sent me. "Surely Master Sunback will make an exception for us." Brother Chalad smiled and shook his head. "I'm afraid that's impossible. If young Sam wants to begin his training, he has to do it alone. I would think Lady Uban knows the rules." "Plum, are you coming?" Cherry called. I jogged to catch up to her. When we reached the end of the dock, I looked back to see the servants returning to the boat and Brother Chalad helping Sam with his many bags. Rella snickered. "Let's see how the little prince does without his court." Chapter 8. Master Dew and Brother Chalad broke us into groups to lead us to our dorm rooms. Cherry and I joined the group following Master Dew up the stairs that led from the beach to the academy's main buildings. We passed the Lotus Court, a wide stone courtyard that held 3 big circular ponds. Lotus blossoms and a rainbow of colors floated in the water. I'd imagined the Guardian Academy would be one large building, like the school on a big crab island. Instead, we walked past many small structures that sat along the edges of the cliffs. Some were even carved right into the cliffs themselves. Master Dew led us down paths and through gardens filled with flowers I had never seen before. Finally, we stopped in front of a large wooden building surrounded by many mango trees. This is one of our dorms," said Master Dew. She began assigning trainees to their rooms. By the end, Cherry, Rella, Hetty, and I were the only ones left. "You 4, follow me, upstairs." Our room was on the 2nd floor. It was simple, with polished wood floors and thick sleeping mats arranged against the wall. A large round window looked out over the gardens beyond our building. "Our welcome ceremony starts at sunset, which is about 2 hours from now," said Master Dew. "I invite you to use this time to rest and relax, and go ahead and change into your uniforms." She nodded to the brown shirts and pants folded at the foot of each bed. We bowed to her, and she left us to unpack. I started to change into my new clothes, grateful that we'd be all wearing the same thing. Maybe I wouldn't stand out so much. Hetty held her uniform up and wrinkled her nose. "Do they have to be so plain?" "So what should we do for the next couple of hours?" asked Cherry. She dove onto her mat and bounced on her knees. "Who's up for wrestling? If anyone can pin me longer than 3 seconds, I'll give you my dessert for a week." Rella had already changed. She stood beside the window looking down. "Do they really expect us to spend all this time resting? We're not babies. I want to have a look around." Too bad we can't jump down and explore, said Hetty. Well, why can't we, said Rella. She leaned out the window. Thick vines covered the outside of our building. Rella gave one of the vines a tug. Hetty gasped. You mean break the rules already? Rella shrugged. They didn't say it was a rule that we couldn't leave. They just invited us to rest. That doesn't mean we have to. She swung her legs over the window ledge. Wait, I said, rushing over to her. Rella rolled her eyes at me. Don't give me a lecture. You're gonna fall. I nodded to the vine she gripped. That's a clingsuckle vine, and as soon as you put your weight on it, the suckers will unstick from the wall and you'll go tumbling. Rella narrowed her eyes at me. Yeah, right, farmer girl. Why did she dislike me so much? Part of me wanted to cry, and part of me, a big part, wanted to show Rella up. I climbed onto the window edge and took hold of a thicker vine. If you're going to do it, at least use the cobra grape, or maybe you don't know what that is since you don't live on a farm. I climbed down the vine quickly, knowing that a cobra grapevine was strong enough to hold an elephant. I dropped to the ground and wiped my hands on my pants. Soon the other 3 girls had climbed down after me, even Hetty. Rella smiled at me. Wow, Plum, I didn't take you for a rule breaker. That's pretty cool of you. I frowned. Rule breaker? Maybe Hetty was right and we should go back. But before I could say anything, Cherry tapped me on the shoulder. Let's just look around for a little bit, okay? Okay. I guess I was a rule breaker after all. Chapter 9. We crossed the courtyard behind our dorm and tiptoed down a shaded path lined with orchid-covered trees. If the academy had gardeners, they didn't tend this part of the island. This part grew wild. Soon the path ended at the edge of a dense grove of trees. I peered into the dark green shadows. Looks like this is where the academy ends and the jungle begins, I said. Maybe we should just go back, said Hetty. Hold on, said Rella. Why would the path lead us here and then just stop? There has to be a way through. While the others searched for the edge of the forest, I walked up to an enormous yam-yam tree. Plump yam-yam fruits grew straight out of the reddish-brown bark. Its trunk was so big around, it must have been more than 100 years old. Thick vines hung down from the branches like curtains. My grandparents had always taught me that trees like this ancient were elders and should be respected. I placed my hands together and bowed to the tree. Hello, Grandmother Yam-Yam, I whispered. I hope we aren't disturbing you. We would love to explore your forest, but of course we wouldn't dare to do so without your permission. I shut my eyes and bowed lower. I heard a rustling sound. I opened my eyes and straightened. To my surprise, there was a path between the vines. It was as if the old tree had shifted her branches and moved the vines out of the way. When I looked down, there were stones peeking through the moss that I hadn't noticed before. Cherry, Rella, Hetty, I called. I found a path. Rella bounded over. Nice work, Plum. You go first. She put her hand on my back and pushed me forward. I swallowed and started walking. I hope this is all right, I whispered to the forest. We won't hurt anything. We're just passing through. Who are you talking to? Asked Rella. Nobody? A soft breeze blew through the trees, and the branches and vines seemed to make way for us. Soon we reached a sunny clearing where the trees thinned out. I heard the trickling of water nearby. Look at that, said Rella. She pushed in front of me and ran ahead. A large building made of moss-covered stones loomed over us. It had been built right into the mountainside. Half of it lay in ruins. Be careful, Hetty. Whoa, said Cherry. This place looks old. Come see this, called Rella. She stood in one of the large doorways that led onto the building. Carefully, we walked inside. We stood in a long open room. The far wall was covered in a painted mural that stretched from the floor to the ceiling. The paint was fading, but we could see colorful images of people, boats, islands, and all sorts of animals. This looks like an old temple, said Rella. Hetty ran her fingers tenderly over the paintings. This mural tells the legends of Lotus Island and the Guardians, she whispered, and how they came here from the old home. A shiver went down my spine. I loved the few stories I had heard about the old home. Do you know the legends? I asked. Hetty nodded. My father's a librarian on Nakhon Island, and he's studied the old stories. Well, said Cherry, tell us. Long ago, Hetty began, when the earth was young and magic was everywhere, our people lived in a place called the Old Home. It was perfect, a paradise. But over time, humans became selfish and greedy, and they fought wars that began to destroy the Old Home. The animals of the world held a big meeting. Humans were being too powerful, and some of the animals argued that they should destroy the humans before humans destroy the world. Other animals defended their human cousins and pressed for peace. Hetty continued. The great beast offered a compromise. He would take the animals away from the old home to a safe place where they could live in harmony. The only humans allowed to come with them had to swear an oath to protect all living things. They all climbed aboard the great beast's back, and he took them far, far away to the Santipap Sea. In the mural, the great beast had the body of a sea dragon and the head of a lion, wings of a bird, and the tail of a fish. Is this for real? Asked Jerry, her eyes wide. Hush and listen, said Hetty. The journey took all the great beast's strength, and he was nearly spent by the time they arrived. He gave the last of his power to the humans, granting them the ability to transform into magical creatures who could defend the animals. If they were ever in danger, these humans became the first guardians, and they took their power from the great beast's hands, heart, and breath. After that, the great beast lay down in the sea, and the humps on his back became the Santipap Islands. Hand, heart, breath, just like the 3 types of guardians. Cherry clapped. I smiled and clapped too. Hetty was a wonderful storyteller. But wait, I said, does that mean all of us who live in Santipap are related to those first guardians? Hetty nodded. That's right. But over the centuries, humans let their powers fade and most lost them altogether. That's why this academy exists, to find those of us who still have a spark of power to teach us how to use it. I expected Rella to roll her eyes at this story, but she was kneeling at the bottom of the mural, peering at the designs that have been scrawled onto the wall with glimmering gold paint. Imagine all the magic from the great beast just lost, she said. If I had power like that, I'd never let it go. I looked at the paintings for a little while longer, then went back outside to breathe in the fresh scents of the forest. I followed the sound of trickling water to a sunny spot where I found a small pond filled with lotus plants. The buds were closed tight like pale green paintbrushes. I could tell the pond was natural, not built by human hands. I breathed deeply. It was so peaceful. It felt like I could sit there for hours and be happy. Behind me, I heard a rustle. Cherry, I said, come see this pond. It's so pretty. I turned around. Cherry! I saw a flash of gold-orange scales. A long, thick tail slithered behind a bush and disappeared into the shadows. My throat went dry. Rella? Hetty? I stood up and ran to go find them and bumped straight into an old woman. I bowed quickly. Oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am. I hope I didn't hurt you. The woman lifted her wrinkled face. She had short, cropped hair as white as a dandelion puff. She wore a mud-slashed tunic and held a basket full of lotus buds in one hand and clipping shears in the other. Just then, Hetty, Cherry, and Rella came running over. When they saw I was talking to someone, their eyes grew wide. The old woman tilted her head at us. If I'm not mistaken, all the trainees have been asked to rest before the welcome ceremony. There are places you shouldn't go on Lotus Island. Hetty pointed at me, lips trembling. Plum climbed out the window. We told her not to, but she wouldn't listen. Rella folded her arms. Her eyes roved over the woman's dirty clothes. We didn't break any rules, and I don't believe it's the place of gardening staff to tell us what to do. We'll take this matter up with Master Sunback. The woman clipped one more lotus bud and stuck it in her basket. No need. She already knows. She smiled broadly at us. It's so nice to meet you, my dears. I am Master Sunback. I gulped. Come, she said. Since you are so well rested already, we might as well put you to work. Cherry and I exchanged a worried look. We hadn't been here more than 3 hours, and we'd already gotten on the bad side of the academy's headmaster. Chapter 10. Hetty yawned as she passed me another plate of polish. Plate to polish. I'm so tired. I wish we had rested. We were in the kitchens where Master Sunback had led us to get the dishes ready for the evening meal. I yawned too. I felt like I could fall asleep on my feet. Cherry seemed as energetic as ever. It was totally worth it to see those cool ruins. That awesome mural. Rella leaned against the counter and watched us work. I want to go back. Hetty's eyes grew wide. But Master Sunback said there were places we shouldn't go. It could be dangerous. Brother Chalad poked his head into the kitchen. I think you've done enough, girls. Come on, the ceremony is about to start. We followed him out to the Lotus Court, where the other trainees had already gathered. I counted 15 of us wearing brown uniforms, including Sam Uban, who stood apart from everyone else. Cherry leaned over and whispered to me, Did you hear that Sam has his own dorm? Wow, he gets his own dorm? No, he gets his own dorm, the whole building, all to himself. Must be nice to have a rich mom. These kids from Lotus Island. Before today, I had never thought about money, but here it seemed to be part of nearly every conversation I had. The sun had set now, and the ocean was dark. Tiny lights began to twinkle above the lotus ponds. Twile flies, I said to Cherry. I used to chase them back home with Tansy. Master Dew stepped out onto the court, and we all bowed to her in greeting. Good morning, young friends. We now welcome you officially as trainees to the Guardian Academy on Lotus Island. She waited for our applause to die down. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our Academy's headmaster, Master Sunback. Of course, the four of us had met Master Sunback already, but this time she was dressed in a long white robe with an orange belt tied in a fancy knot. I wondered how old she was. Her hair was whiter than my grandma's, and her skin was wrinklier. But there was something young about the way she moved and the playful look in her eyes when she smiled. Welcome, children, welcome, she said, holding her hands out to us. This is a very special night, one that we'll have been looking forward to for 10 long years. You have been selected as trainees because you showed potential to possess the power of the Guardians. For the next month, you will receive instruction in the arts of caretaking, meditation, and defense. This training will help you connect with your Guardian forms. Master Sunback pointed to the full moon. By the next full moon, you will be tested to see if you can change into your Guardian form. This is the first and most important test on the path to becoming a Guardian. If you pass, you will become a novice, and you will stay here to continue your training. She smiled, and deep wrinkles creased the corners of her eyes. Now don't let me keep blabbering on. It is time to meet a very special group of people. They have traveled from the far reaches of our island to show you what awaits you. Master Sunback stepped aside, and a line of 6 young men and women marched out one of the side pavilions. They all walked tall and squared-shouldered. Oh, they must be the Guardians who were novices before us, whispered Cherry. The Guardians formed a line in front of Master Sunback's and greeted us with smiles. The air seemed to crackle with magic. It is important that Guardians learn to master every element of our craft, said Master Sunback. But there will be one element that comes mostly natural to you. You may demonstrate great strength and agility and become a hand guardian. 2 Guardians stepped forward and raised their arms high. They swooped their arms down, and in an instant they transformed. One became a Zorhawk with broad wings and curved beak, and other was a glister mare with a sparkling mane and powerful legs. The mare galloped across the Lotus Court so fast that she became a streak of silver. The Zorhawk gripped a heavy boulder in his talons and carried it easily from one end of the courtyard to another. We all gasped and cheered. Master Sunback smiled. Or perhaps you'll become a heart guardian with the skills to nurture and heal. The next 2 Guardians stepped forward and transformed into a butter moth and a golden raccoon. Together they knelt at the end of one of the lotus ponds where the sun had scorched the lotus pads a patchy brown. The raccoon placed his hand on the damaged leaves while the butter moth fluttered her wings. Green life flowed back into the pads, healing them completely. We clapped in awe. Or perhaps you'll be a breath guardian, said Master Sunback, with powers of the mind and the senses. The last 2 Guardians transformed into the same thing, wing rays. They glided through the air as easily as if they were swimming through the sea. They beat their great leathery wings, creating a cool breeze. When the air hit us, a sense of calm washed over me. Both Cherry and I breathed deep sighs of happiness. Calming people down is a cool power to have, Cherry whispered to me. Totally cool. The twilight flies swirled out of the lotus blossoms and hovered over our heads. I could hardly believe these amazing Guardians in front of us had been in our place 10 years ago. Could I really learn how to become something as wonderful as them? Master Sunback raised her hands and clapped twice. All the Guardians resumed their human forms. We gave them a huge round of applause. Now, my trainees, you have seen what lies ahead, said Master Sunback. You must choose whether to undertake this journey. If you do not accept, no one will blame you. But if you choose to stay for the first test, please take a lotus bud and place it in the water. She held up the basket of pale green buds I had seen her collecting from the pond by the ruins. One by one, she called our names. When Cherry was called, she confidently strode up to Master Sunback and took her flower. My turn was coming. Behind me, Rella whispered to someone, "This Guardian stuff is tough. Not for just any old farm girl." My ears burned. Oh, how I wanted to prove her wrong. But being a Guardian was a huge responsibility. I couldn't take it on just to spite Rella. I looked up at the row of adult Guardians. They seemed so confident and sure, like they knew exactly what their place was in the world. I wanted that for myself. I clutched my shell pendant and shut my eyes. "Plum," said Master Sunback. "Plum, have you decided?" I walked forward, took my flower, and floated it in the water beside the others. All around me, the twilight flies blinked to the beat of my racing heart. Chapter 11. The next morning, all the trainees were so excited to begin. "Welcome to your very first heart class," said Brother Chalad with a smile. "Your heart training will teach you the art of healing and caring for the living things of this world. Heart guardians have the power to mend broken bones, soothe pain, and repair damage." Cherry raised her hand. "Brother Chalad, my neighbor says that the heart guardians can bring people back from the brink of death." Everyone whispered curiously about this, but Brother Chalad shook his head. "That is an old legend, but I have never known a guardian who was able to do something so powerful, and today we will certainly be starting with something much less complicated. Follow me." He led us past the dorm buildings, along the edge of the forest, and into a large sunny meadow. A stream trickled out of the forest and burbled among the grasses. Brother Chalad pushed the sleeves of his robe up and held out his palms. With a twitch of his nose, he transformed into a fluffy lemon kinkajou with a yellow and white striped tail. We all burst into applause. I was glad I wasn't the only one who still got breathless to see guardians transform. Brother Chalad held up his little kinkajou hands to quiet us down. "One of the most important parts of the healing arts is making medicines from plants and herbs. Some of these are very rare and difficult to find, such as a frail bean." He dropped down on all fours and snuffled around on the tall grass. After a moment, he stood up on his back legs with a tiny purple flower clamped in his teeth. He stretched up and changed back into his human form, holding the flower out for us all to see. "Today you won't need to find anything nearly as rare as this," said Brother Chalad, as he gently tucked the flower into his satchel. "You will start with common herbs." With a partner. The first team who gathers everything on their list gets an extra 5 points on their assignment. The trainees began partnering up as Brother Chalad handed out lists. I wanted to be with Cherry, but another girl had already asked her. One boy from Neeley Island didn't have a partner yet. Would he want to work with a farm girl like me? I puffed up my lungs and tapped him on the shoulder. "And Plum, do you want to work together?" "Yeah, sure. My name's Salan." He took my hand very formally. The first plant on the list was a peely milkfoot. He pointed to the paper. Beside each plant's name was a little sketch of what it looked like. "Should we start searching up there on that hill?" "Well, milkfoot likes to grow in wet soil," I said, "so we probably want to try near the stream for that one." Salan tilted his head at me. "How do you know that?" Grandma had taught me all about these herbs before I could even read, but I said, I have a book about plants at home." We headed to the stream, and sure enough, clumps of peely milkfoot grew along the water's edge. We also gathered riverwort and seethin nearby. I pointed at the next plant on the list. "Oh, farfarel. I know what that looks like. Let's look on the hill. It clings to sunny rocks." This was almost too easy. Salan was a great partner and a fast learner. We laughed as we raced up the hill together. "Plum, I think I found it," called Salan, as he turned over a smooth stone. "Is this— Ow! What happened?" He rubbed the back of his hand. "An ant bit me." "Oh, this really stings." I searched around in the shade of the biggest stones. "Dark green leaves with veins of blue. It's got to be here. Where is it? There!" I plucked the dark leaves, shoved them into my mouth, and started to chew. What are you doing?" asked Salan. "This is itchbane," I said as I chewed the leaves into a pulp. It'll stop stinging right away. Here." I took the green mash out of my mouth and stuck it onto Salan's ant bite. "Ew!" cried Salan. "What the— Oh gosh, what had I done?" Now Salan would really think I was weird. "Hey," Salan said. He flexed his fingers. "Hey, that is— Whoa, the stinging is gone. Plum, you're amazing. Did you learn this from your book too?" I breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. "Actually, my grandma taught me." "Well, it's super cool," said Salan. "But next time, let me chew up my own itchbane, okay?" I laughed, and we ran to tell Brother Chalad that we were the first to finish. If all our training was going to be this easy, then I would pass the first test, no problem. Chapter 12. Next up was hand class. Master Dew greeted us on the wide grassy lawn between the Lotus Court and the kitchens. "Hand guardians never attack unprovoked," she said, "but sometimes our work takes us to dangerous situations, and we must be prepared to defend ourselves and those around us." A boy named Twist raised his hand. "Excuse me, Master Dew, but shouldn't we be learning defense in our guardian forms?" Master Dew nodded and smiled. "If you pass the first test and become a novice, then you will definitely learn how to defend yourself in your guardian form." But everything I teach you in this class will be useful no matter what form you are in. And if for some reason you lose the ability to transform, you'll be able to defend yourself as a human." We all cast curious looks at one another. Until then, no one had mentioned that a guardian could lose their powers. Cherry stood up and bounced to the front of the class. I'm ready. Let's do this. What's first? Flying kicks? Punches? Combination flying punch kicks?" Master Dew's mouth twitched up in a smile. She dropped into a crouch, and when she sprang back up, she transformed into a huge, muscular Cat with an inky coat and a pair of short golden horns perched between her ears. She prowled in a slow circle around Cherry, and then, before any of us could blink, she pounced on her, tackling Cherry to her back. Cherry grunted and squirmed as the Cat leaned her paws on her shoulders. "Can you throw a punch now?" Master Dew asked. "Cherry, how about a kick?" She laughed as Cherry struggled. "If you can't escape, you don't stand much of a chance against me." "I can't escape," said Cherry. "It's impossible." With a shake of her head, Master Dew transformed back into a human. She reached her hand out to Cherry and helped her up. "It is possible, and it is vital that you learn how." She turned to address the entire class. "Escape means survival. If you pay attention in this class, you will learn how to escape from almost any situation. Knowing you can escape will give you the confidence to face even the toughest opponent." She put her hand on Cherry's shoulder. "Am I right, Cherry?" Cherry smiled and nodded. "Right. Well, then let's get started." That's when I learned that we'd been spending most of the hand class squirming around on the ground. Master Dew taught us how to bridge our hips to shift an opponent's center of gravity and topple them. We learned which of our muscle groups were the strongest, and we learned how to use them against an opponent to gain an advantage. Leverage and balance were way more important than strength or size. With those two skills, even a small person could escape from someone much bigger and stronger. By the end of the class, we had learned 2 basic escape moves. I was surprised by how much we had improved in such a short time, but no one was as good as Rella. Every time Hetty tried to pin her down, she slipped out within seconds and was up on her feet. "Look how Rella keeps her eyes on Hetty's face," said Cherry. "That way she can tell what move Hetty's about to make before she makes it. She was always one step ahead. Smart." "Yeah, she is," I said with a frown. By the time we got to our third and last class of the day, breath, we were all tired but excited. We chattered like songbirds as we waited for Master Sunback to join us in the covered pavilion on the Lotus Court. "When do you think they'll teach us how to transform?" asked Celan. "Ooh, maybe we'll learn today," said Hetty. Cherry leaned towards them. "My uncle told me that when you're first learning, only parts of your body will transform." A boy named Miko looked worried. "What if you grow a tail and you can't change back, and then you have to walk around with a deer butt for the whole day?" We heard a chuckle behind us. We turned and bowed to Master Sunback as Master Sunback stepped onto the pavilion. "You'll be pleased to know that I've never had any deer butt incident in my class, Miko. Now, everyone please sit comfortably and we'll get started." I settled in next to Cherry. This time I was the one bouncing in place. I couldn't wait to find out what cool things we'd be doing. "Close your eyes," said Master Sunback. "Begin noticing your breathing. Focus on the place just inside your nostrils and feel your breath going into your nose and out. Breathe in through your nose and out through your nose." This is it, I thought. In just a moment she'll teach us the secret to harnessing our guardian powers. But she didn't. For the entire class, we practiced breathing in and out, and that was it. When I finally opened my eyes, I saw that the other kids around me looked so disappointed. Wore looks of disappointment. Master Sunback opened her eyes and exhaled with a smile. "Good work, young trainees. Most of you need much more practice, but that's enough for today. Time for lunch." "Was that really it?" I whispered to Cherry. "Maybe it was a warm-up class." "I don't need to learn to breathe," huffed Rella as we walked into the dining hall. "I've been breathing all my life. What a waste of time." I hated to admit it, but I sort of agreed with Rella. Chapter 13. One thing for sure, meals were going to be my favorite part of the day on Lotus Island. We had cold noodles with purple garlic and sweet cabbage, fried pippy peas, and chili on rice, coconut soup with mushrooms and ginger, and a giant platter full of fruit. "Hey, Plum," said Cherry, stuffing her mouth with longans. "We could sit in the bowl when it's empty and we'd be a fruit salad, remember?" We all laughed. The other great thing about lunch was getting to know other kids. I'd already met Clever Celan and Goofy Miko. There was Emmy, a shy girl from Windy Island, Twist showed us that he could put 41 sassberries in his mouth at once. There were the twins, Basil and Drum, who looked identical except for Basil's freckles. Most of Nakan Island kids ate at their own table. Then there was Sam, who sat at a table by himself. I stuffed a piece of papyrus in my mouth and suddenly felt exhausted. But we had one last thing on our schedule. What do you think community fun time is? I asked. I hope it's swimming at the beach because I am boiling, said Twist. Maybe it's playing games, said Emmy. Or taking a nap, said Miko with a big yawn. It turned out that community fun time was chores. Our island prospers because we take care of it, said Master Dew with a cheerful smile. I know everyone is excited to hear what their chore will be. Behind me, I heard some groans. The rest of us tried to smile. Cherry and Rella head to the kitchen to start washing up from lunch, said Master Dew. Salon and Hetty, you can help clean the linens. You kids over there can help me sweep up the lotus court and pavilions. And Sam and Plum, you two head to the kitchen gardens for weeding. I frowned. I didn't mind doing chores, but I did have to be paired with Snobby Snap. He bowed to Master Dew and walked towards the garden without even waiting for me. Lotus Island's vegetable gardens were planted on a hill that sloped gently up towards a grove of babble trees. The gardens were much bigger than ours back home. Plum tomatoes and shiny eggplants hung in heavy clusters. There were many rows of dark green vegetables and tall trellises covered in beans. Afternoon, said a man wearing brown robes. I'm Brother Dan. I take care of the kitchen garden. Take these gloves and you can start wherever you think needs the most work. I passed one pair of gloves to Sam. How about you start with the beans and I'll take the cabbages. Do you have a lot of experiences in gardens? He mumbled something I could hear and headed for the beans. Fine. If he didn't want to talk to me, then I didn't want to talk to him either. I knelt down among the bright purple cabbages and got started. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pang of missing Grandma and Grandpa, but I was determined not to cry, especially in front of Sam. Pretty soon, sweat was dripping off the end of my nose, and it felt good digging my hands through the dark, fluffy soil. I was lost in it and didn't give a thought to Rella being a guardian or anything else about Lotus Island. I guess I was pretty into my work because I fell into my old habit of talking to the creatures around me. Hey, worm friends, you like this pepper patch, huh? Well, good. Do your best so we can have some spicy chilies in our sauce. Oh, hey, Whippertail, I said to the little bird that landed on a nearby cherry corn stalk. Now, don't go eating these worms, okay? They're doing us a big favor. But I know you must have some chicks in your nest to feed. There are some juicy spikel beetles that are attacking our tomatoes. Not going to say more than that, but you know what to do. The Whippertail bobbed her head at me and flew off towards the tomatoes. I followed her flight with a smile. That's when I noticed Sam kneeling in the melon patch, watching me. He quickly looked away when he realized I had seen him. Great. Now he was sure to tell the others that I was a ridiculous farm girl who talked to worms. And I'd never hear the end of it from Rella. Why did worms always give me so much trouble? At this point, I'm going to pause reading and then start back up at chapter 14 to finish the story. If you're going to take your own break here, then I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.